The message arrived on a Tuesday. It came not as a declaration of war, but as a simple announcement, delivered to every screen on Earth at the same moment. Humanity had been judged and found wanting by the Galactic Council. The sentence, exile from their home solar system within 1 year or face extinction. Commander Alan Wright stood before the massive curved table where the 7 council representatives sat. Their alien features showed no emotion as they watched him. The chamber was cold and silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Alan had spent his career in the United Earth Defense Force preparing for alien contact. He never imagined his first major diplomatic mission would be begging for humanity's right to exist. "The decision is final," said Oryx, the Zentari representative, his blue skin reflecting the chamber's pale light. "Humanity poses too great a risk to galactic stability. You are too unpredictable, too aggressive, too quick to violence." "We've only had faster-than-light technology for 15 years, Alan argued, trying to keep his voice steady. "We've barely explored beyond our own solar system. How can we possibly threaten you?" The Vuldurian representative, a tall figure with 4 arms and silver eyes, leaned forward. "It is not what you have done, but what you will do. Our predictive models are clear. Allow humans to expand, and within 3 centuries, you will dominate this quadrant through force. This cannot be permitted." Alan looked at each alien face, searching for any sign of sympathy. He found none. "You're condemning billions based on a prediction. We deserve a chance to prove ourselves." "The Council has spoken," Oryx said. 1 Earth year to evacuate. Any humans remaining in the Sol system after that time will be removed. This meeting is over. Alan's return to Earth was worse than his departure. President Samantha Mercer met him at the landing pad, her face grim in the morning sunlight. The news had already spread across the planet, causing panic and disbelief. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders proclaimed the end times. Military forces went on high alert. They wouldn't budge. President Mercer asked as they walked toward the White House Situation Room. "Not an inch," Alan replied. "They've been watching us since we developed warp drives. They think we're too dangerous to let loose in the galaxy." The Situation Room was packed with world leaders, connected via secure video links. Chinese Premier Lin, Russian President Petrov, Nigerian Chancellor Adebayo, and 24 others waited for answers no one had. "We have confirmation their fleet could destroy us," said General Carlo Rodriguez, pointing to satellite images of massive alien ships positioned beyond Mars. "Our weapons would barely scratch their hulls." The room fell silent until Dr. Frank Holden, a thin man with tired eyes and rumpled clothes, stood up. The physicist hadn't slept in days, but his voice was clear. "We don't fight. We leave," he said, activating a holographic display. "I've been working on experimental long-range warp technology. It was meant to be tested over the next decade, but we can accelerate the timeline." "You want us to abandon Earth?" Premier Lin asked in disbelief. "I want us to survive," Frank replied. "The Orion Spur has several unclaimed star systems beyond Council territory. If we pool global resources and work around the clock, we can build enough ships to evacuate a significant portion of our population." President Mercer studied the plans. "How many could we save?" "With full global cooperation and every resource diverted to the effort, perhaps 4 billion people." "And the rest?" Chancellor Adebayo asked, her voice barely a whisper. No one answered. The choice was impossible, yet it had to be made. "We were going to explore the stars eventually," Alan said, breaking the silence. "They're just forcing our timetable. Humanity didn't climb out of the caves by giving up when things got hard." President Mercer nodded slowly. "We'll need a name for this operation, something to give people hope." "Operation Phoenix," Frank suggested, "after the mythical bird that rises from its own ashes." And so the greatest undertaking in human history began, not with a celebration of achievement, but with the desperate need to survive. Humanity had 1 year to gather what they could from their home and venture into the unknown, or cease to exist altogether. 6 months after the Council's ultimatum, Earth had transformed. Where once cities sprawled, now massive shipyards dominated the landscape. Day and night, the sounds of construction echoed across continents as humanity built their escape vessels. Fields where farmers once grew crops now housed enormous assembly plants. The oceans, once filled with fishing boats, now supported floating platforms where the largest ships took shape. Fleet Admiral Olivia Rice stood on the bridge of the horizon, the lead ship of humanity's Exodus fleet. At 52, she had never expected to end her naval career leading a desperate escape from Earth. She watched through the viewscreen as hundreds of vessels moved into formation above the planet. Colony ships carrying thousands of families. Cargo vessels loaded with seeds, animals, and the genetic legacy of Earth. Military escorts converted from Earth's defensive fleet. "Admiral, all ships report ready for departure," said her executive officer, Commander Nathan Kelly. Olivia nodded, her throat tight. "And the stragglers?" "Still loading, ma'am." Chief Engineer Morris reports the final civilian transports need another 12 hours. Below them, Earth continued to spin, beautiful and blue. Already, Council observation vessels hovered at the edge of the solar system, watching. Their message had been clear: any humans remaining after the deadline would face extinction. In the engine room of the colony ship New Dawn, Chief Engineer Peter Morris wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the experimental warp drive. The technology had been rushed into production, with barely any testing. Now the lives of 80,000 colonists sleeping in cryostasis depended on his work. "The power couplings are holding," said his assistant, Susan Rivera, scrolling through diagnostics on her tablet. "But I'm not sure how they'll handle the strain of a full warp jump." Peter tightened a connection with his wrench. "They'll hold because they have to hold. We don't get a second try at this." On the Defiant, a converted military destroyer, Captain George Hunter briefed his crew one last time. Their ship would be among the last to leave, providing protection for the civilian vessels. "I won't lie to you," George said to the solemn faces around him. "Council regulations forbid attacking their ships directly. But if they move against our civilians, we'll do whatever it takes to give our people a chance." The crew nodded in grim understanding. None of them had signed up for a suicide mission, but they all understood the stakes. At the North American Launch Control, President Mercer addressed the world one final time. "Today we leave our home, not by choice, but by necessity. Earth has nurtured humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. Now we must find our way among the stars. We carry with us not just our people, but our cultures, our histories, our dreams. This is not the end of humanity, but a new beginning." As the deadline approached, the massive fleet began to depart in waves. The first ships accelerated toward the designated jump point beyond Mars' orbit, their engines blazing against the darkness of space. Families crowded around view screens for one last look at the receding Earth. But trouble came before the last ships could depart. Vuldurian patrol vessels moved in closer than the agreed boundary, their weapons powering up as they approached the final civilian transports. "They're targeting the New Dawn," Commander Kelly reported, his voice tense. "The ship's still having engine trouble. They can't jump to warp." On the Defiant, Captain Hunter made his decision. "Intercept course. Put us between those patrol ships and the civilian vessel." "Sir, they outgun us 3-1, his tactical officer warned. "I'm aware, Lieutenant. Do it anyway." The Defiant surged forward, placing itself in the line of fire. As the Vuldurian ships opened fire, the Defiant returned fire just enough to draw their attention while the New Dawn limped toward the jump point. "Tell Morris he has 5 minutes to get that drive working," Olivia ordered from the horizon. "And signal the Defiant to withdraw." "They're not responding to recall orders, Admiral," Kelly said quietly. "Captain Hunter says they'll bide the civilians whatever time they need." In the engine room of the New Dawn, Peter finally stabilized the warp field. "We're ready." As the last human ships vanished into warp, The Defiant erupted in a flash of light, its sacrifice ensuring that the final piece of humanity escaped into the unknown. After 4 months of travel through the emptiness of space, the human fleet emerged from warp near an uncharted star system. The journey had been hard. 37 ships had been lost to warp drive failures. Food supplies ran low on many vessels. But now, as the fleet approached the yellow star with its orbiting planets, a spark of hope spread through the survivors. Admiral Olivia Rice stood on the bridge of the horizon as the sensor data came in. 3 planets circled the star, and initial scans showed that 2 might support human life. The third was a gas giant with several moons. "The second planet has breathable air and liquid water," said Science Officer Andrea Cooper, her eyes wide with excitement. "Gravity is 93% of Earth normal. No signs of advanced civilization or technology." Olivia looked at the blue-green world on the main screen. "Then we found our new home. I hereby name this system Phoenix, after our mission. The habitable world will be Phoenix Prime." The news spread quickly through the fleet. For the first time in months, people smiled and laughed. Children who had been born during the journey would have solid ground beneath their feet. The nightmare of exile began to fade as the promise of a fresh start grew stronger. The first landing teams touched down 3 days later. Paul Jackson, a former park ranger now serving as a scout, was among the first humans to walk on the new world. The sky was a deeper blue than Earth's, and strange birds with 6 wings soared overhead. The plants were similar to Earth's, but with subtle differences: leaves with purple undersides, flowers that closed when approached. "The air smelled sweet," Paul said into his radio as he took samples of the soil, "like cinnamon and oranges mixed together." Over the next few weeks, thousands of humans descended to the surface in shuttles. They established a base camp in a wide valley near a freshwater river. Engineers set up power generators. Doctors treated the sick and injured. Farmers examined the soil and prepared to plant the first crops. Not everyone agreed on what their new society should look like. Former United Nations Secretary William Foster called a meeting of the fleet's leaders in a large tent that served as their temporary headquarters. "We need a strong central government," William argued. "A unified human nation that can defend against the Council if they ever find us." Catherine Bell, who had once led one of Earth's largest tech companies, shook her head. "No, we need freedom to innovate. Let different settlements develop their own systems. Competition will make us stronger." As the debate continued, Dr. Frank Holden slipped away. The physicist had noticed strange energy readings coming from Phoenix Prime's large moon. Taking a small research shuttle, he flew to investigate, accompanied by 2 graduate students. Landing on the moon's dusty surface, they found a network of caves that went deep underground. In the largest cave, they discovered something impossible: a smooth black obelisk covered in unknown symbols. "This isn't natural," Frank whispered, running his scanner over the object. "This was made by intelligent beings." Back on Phoenix Prime, the first permanent settlement took shape. People named it Defiance, both as a tribute to Captain Hunter's sacrificed ship and as a statement of humanity's refusal to fade away. Simple homes rose from the fertile soil. A town hall was built in the center. Schools opened for the children. Admiral Reyes walked through the growing town, watching families settle into their new homes. An elderly woman was planting flowers beside her front door. "Do you think we'll be safe here?" the woman asked. Olivia looked up at the alien sky, where the rest of the fleet still orbited, waiting for their turn to land. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But I do know that wherever humans go, we adapt. We survive. We build. That's what we're doing here." The woman nodded and continued planting her garden, pressing Earth seeds into alien soil, a simple act of faith in humanity's future on this new world. 10 years passed on Phoenix Prime. The small settlement of Defiance had grown into a bustling city of 500,000 people. Glass towers rose alongside parks, filled with a mix of earth plants and native flora. 3 more major cities have been established across the planet, and smaller colonies now existed on the neighboring planet they called Phoenix Secondary. Dr. Frank Holden, now with gray in his beard, stood in his laboratory beneath the city. The walls were lined with equipment built from the knowledge gained from the mysterious obelisk found on Phoenix Prime's moon. That discovery had changed everything. "The power output has doubled again," said Zoe Mitchell, his young protege. At 25, she had been just a teenager during the Exodus. Now she was one of the most brilliant minds in the new human civilization. Frank nodded as he studied the glowing cube floating above their test platform. The aliens who built the obelisk understood quantum energy in ways we never imagined on Earth. Without the Council's restrictions, we've been able to develop technology they forbade us from even researching. The cube pulsed with blue light, generating enough power to run the entire city for a month. Similar devices were being installed across human territories, ending energy shortages that had plagued the early days of colonization. Across the city, in a secure military facility, Major Daniel Keller watched as robotic drones flew through a complex obstacle course. The machines moved with incredible speed and precision, far beyond what human reflexes could achieve. "The defense grid for the Phoenix system will be operational next month," Daniel told the assembled officers. "Our sensors can now detect ships entering the system from up to 2 light-years away. If the Council ever finds us, we'll have warning." No one in the room mentioned the obvious. Their defensive capabilities had grown far beyond mere early warning. The Phoenix Federation, as the human government was now called, had developed weapons that could challenge even Council ships. The memory of exile had driven humanity to prepare for the worst while hoping for peace. In orbit above Phoenix Prime, the diplomatic vessel Outreach prepared for its maiden voyage. Ambassador Lisa Ward supervised as the last supplies were loaded. At 45, she had once been a language professor on Earth. Now she was about to make first contact with another species. The Nairathi signals came from the Cygnus arm, Lisa told her staff. Their message was clear. They too were exiled by the Council centuries ago. They want to meet us. The possibility of allies excited everyone. Humanity had spread to 3 star systems already, but they were still vulnerable in the vastness of the galaxy. Back in the Capitol building of Defiance, President William Foster, son of the former UN secretary who had died 5 years earlier, reviewed the reports from across human space. The population had grown to nearly 3 billion, with new children born every day. The hydroponic farms produced abundant food. The educational system was turning out engineers, doctors, and scientists at an unprecedented rate. "We've accomplished more in 10 years than we might have in 50 on Earth," Williams said to his advisors. "Without the Council's restrictions, human innovation has flourished." His chief science advisor nodded. "The quantum communication network now links all our settlements instantaneously. Ships can travel between our systems in days rather than months. And Dr. Holden's team has made breakthroughs in materials science that were theoretical at best on Earth." Yet challenges remained. Some colonists wanted to push for faster expansion. Others feared drawing the Council's attention. Political factions argued over resource allocation and military spending. A young aide entered the room. "Mr. President, we've received a transmission from the Deep Space Observatory. They've detected a Council patrol ship passing through a nearby sector. It didn't approach our systems, but it was closer than we've seen before." The room fell silent. 10 years of peace had not erased the memory of exile. William looked out the window at the city below, where people walked freely under the alien sky they now called home. "Double the patrols in that sector," he said quietly, "and speed up the construction of the defense platforms. We've built too much here to lose it now." The human empire was growing stronger every day, but the shadow of their former oppressors still loomed in the darkness between the stars. 25 years after the exodus from Earth, the Phoenix Federation had grown to include 7 star systems. Humanity was no longer a homeless species, but an emerging power in their corner of the galaxy. With growth came new challenges, both from within and without. Colonial Governor Ryan Phillips stood at the window of his office on New Dakota, the outermost human colony. Below him, protesters filled the main square of the settlement. They carried signs demanding independence from the Federation. "They believe we don't understand their needs," Ryan explained to Admiral Olivia Reyes, who had made the long journey from Phoenix Prime to assess the situation. At 77, she remained a powerful figure, though her hair had turned white and her face was lined with age. "The Federation was created to protect all humans," Olivia said, watching the peaceful demonstration. "Don't they understand the dangers of division?" Ryan sighed. "They were born here, Admiral. They never knew Earth or the exile. To them, the Council is just a story their parents tell. The distance between worlds created more than political problems. Maintaining unity across multiple star systems strained even the advanced communication network humanity had built. Cultural differences emerged as colonies adapted to their unique environments. On the frontier outpost of Harper's Point, Admiral Reyes' flagship, Phoenix Dawn, engaged a group of rogue ships that had been raiding supply convoys. These weren't aliens but human pirates led by Vincent Haynes, a former Federation officer who had turned against the government. "Surrender now," Olivia commanded as her ships surrounded the pirate vessels. "There's nowhere to run." Vincent's face appeared on the communication screen. "The Federation has become too controlling, too much like the Council that exiled us. Some of us want true freedom." Despite such internal conflicts, the greater threat remained external. The Nyrathi alliance had brought valuable trade and knowledge exchange, but also troubling news. Ambassador Lisa Ward met with the Nyrathi envoy, a tall, four-armed being named Kelt, in the diplomatic quarter of Defiance City. "Council observation ships have been spotted near 3 of your colonies in the past month," Kelt told her, his voice translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "They are watching you more closely now." Lisa frowned. "Do they know about our alliance with your people?" "If they don't, they will soon," Kelt replied. "The Council fears cooperation between species they cannot control." While Federation leaders debated how to respond to the Council's increased surveillance, Nicole Mercer, daughter of the former President Samantha Mercer, proposed a bold plan. As the Federation's chief diplomat at just 32, she had inherited her mother's courage and vision. "We should establish formal relations with some of the minor council races," Nicole suggested during a high-level meeting. "The Tellarites and Brekka have shown signs of disagreeing with council policies. By opening dialogue, we might gain allies within the council itself." Many officials opposed the idea, fearing it would provoke the powerful Zentari and Valdurians who dominated the council. The debate reflected the growing confidence of humanity, now willing to consider diplomatic options rather than hiding. Meanwhile, on Phoenix II, the least developed planet in the home system, archaeologists made a startling discovery. Dr. Eric Palmer led a team exploring unusual rock formations in the northern continent when they uncovered a vast underground complex. These structures predate human arrival by thousands of years, Eric reported as he led Federation scientists through the alien ruins. "The symbols match those on the obelisk Dr. Holden found when we first arrived." The ancient technology found within the ruins suggested that Phoenix hadn't been chosen by accident. The system appeared to have been a significant location for an advanced civilization long before humans claimed it. As humanity expanded their territory and knowledge, questions multiplied. Had the Council known about these ruins? Was there a connection between the ancient civilization and humanity's exile? The Federation's intelligence service, led by Director Andy Miller, began investigating these questions with growing urgency. The once exiled humans were no longer merely surviving. They were building an interstellar nation that might one day rival the Council itself. But with every step forward, the shadows of the past and the uncertainty of the future grew longer. 50 years after humanity's forced exodus from Earth, the Phoenix Federation had transformed into the Phoenix Empire. What began as a collection of desperate refugees had become a powerful force spanning over 30 star systems. The Grand Imperial Palace in Defiance City symbolized this transformation, its tall spires reaching toward the alien sky that no longer seemed so strange. Emperor William Foster I, grandson of the Federation's founder, addressed the Imperial Senate from his circular podium at the center of the vast chamber. At 43, he carried himself with the confidence of a man born to lead. Unlike his grandfather, he had never known Earth, having been born during the early years on Phoenix Prime. Today marks the 50th anniversary of our arrival in this system, William said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room without technological assistance. What began as exile has become our triumph. Our population now exceeds 12 billion souls. Our technology surpasses anything our ancestors knew on Earth. The senators, representing worlds across human space, applauded. Some were human, but others belonged to species that had joined the Empire willingly. The Nirathi had become full partners in the growing human realm, and 3 other alien races had sought protection under the Empire's banner. In her office in the military headquarters nearby, General Heather Collins reviewed the latest reports from the border monitoring stations. At 55, she had been born during the journey from Earth, one of the Void children who first saw light in the darkness between stars. Imperial scout ships have confirmed increased Council activity in the Orient sector, she told her officers. They appear to be establishing a new outpost within 20 light-years of our border. The officers exchanged concerned glances. Despite their growing strength, humans had largely avoided direct confrontation with the Council. The memory of exile remained strong in the older generation, and no one wished to provoke another catastrophe. Meanwhile, at the Imperial Science Academy, Chief Scientist Marcus Holden continued his grandfather's legacy. The grandson of the legendary Frank Holden had inherited both his intellect and curiosity. The laboratory where he worked housed technology that would have seemed like magic to the original exiles. The gravitational manipulation field is stable, Marcus reported as he demonstrated the device for a group of officials. A small metal sphere floated above a platform, surrounded by a faint blue glow. With this technology, we can create artificial gravity on space stations, protect ships from extreme acceleration, and even deflect asteroids from inhabited worlds. What Marcus didn't mention was the military application. The technology could theoretically disable enemy ships by disrupting their gravimetric systems. The Empire developed such weapons not from a desire for conquest, but from the determination to never again be victims. In distant space, far from the Empire's core worlds, an emergency unfolded. The Tellarites, a minor council race, faced extinction as their home star began to destabilize. The Council's ruling races, the Zentari and Valdurians, had offered minimal assistance, claiming that evacuating an entire species would strain resources. A Tellarite diplomat named Gore secretly met with Imperial Ambassador Julia Woods aboard a neutral trading station. His leathery skin was pale with worry as he explained his people's plight. Our scientists give us less than 1 Earth year before the solar flares make our world uninhabitable, Gore said. The Council has offered to evacuate only our political leaders and scientific elite. Millions will be left to die. Julia's face showed no emotion, but her voice was kind. Why come to us? The Council forbids your people from contacting the Empire. Because you were once refugees, Gore replied simply. You know what it means to lose a home. Back on Phoenix Prime, Emperor Foster received the ambassador's report. The choice before him was momentous. To rescue the Tellarites would mean openly defying Council authority for the first time. Yet to refuse would betray the values that had sustained humanity through their own exile. William gazed out the palace window at the thriving city below. Children played in parks where once there had been only alien wilderness. Towers of glass and metal reached skyward, testimony to human resilience and ingenuity. Prepare the evacuation fleet, he ordered. We were shown no mercy. That doesn't mean we cannot show it to others. With those words, humanity stepped onto a larger stage in galactic politics. The exiles had become saviors. The Phoenix Empire spread its wings wider, ready to change the galaxy itself. 75 years had passed since humanity fled from Earth. The Phoenix Empire now controlled over 50 star systems and had formal alliances with 7 non-human species. The rescue of the Tellarites had changed galactic politics forever. Several minor council races now looked to humanity as a potential protector against the domineering Centauri and Valdurians. Admiral Jack Bennett stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Defiance, named after both the first human settlement and the destroyed ship that had protected the last refugees from Earth. At 48, he was considered young for his position, but his tactical brilliance had earned him command of the Empire's most advanced vessel. "The stealth systems are fully operational," reported his executive officer, Commander Linda Moore. "We can approach Sol without detection if we maintain minimal power usage." Jack nodded, his expression solemn. "The Emperor has authorized this mission, but its success depends on absolute secrecy. If the Council discovers our presence, it could mean war." The mission was simple in concept but dangerous in execution. Return to the Sol system and see what had become of Earth in the decades since humanity's exile. Many believed the mission unnecessary, a sentimental journey that risked too much. Others, including Emperor Foster, felt it essential to know whether their original home still existed. After a week of careful travel, the Defiance and its small escort of stealth ships reached the edge of the Sol system. They approached from above the ecliptic plane, using Jupiter's magnetic field to mask their signatures from Council monitoring stations. "Scanning Earth now," Linda announced as they entered high orbit around humanity's birthplace. The bridge crew fell silent as the first images appeared on their screens. Earth still shone blue and white against the blackness of space, but something was different. The continents showed strange patterns of vegetation, and massive structures unlike any human cities dotted the landscape. "Centauri bioarchitecture," Jack said quietly. "They've terraformed Earth for their own colonization." Detailed scans revealed more. The oceans had been chemically altered to better suit Centauri biology. The atmosphere contained higher levels of nitrogen. Most traces of human civilization had been erased, though a few ancient monuments remained as curiosities for the new inhabitants. While the sight of their transformed homeworld struck the crew with grief, the mission's true shock came when they intercepted communications from a Council facility on Mars. Imperial Intelligence Director Sophia Grant, who had accompanied the mission, reviewed the decrypted data in a secure compartment. "This changes everything," she told Jack, her normally calm voice trembling with anger. "The Council records show that the supposed predictive models that led to our exile were fabricated. The Centauri and Valdurians feared human potential and engineered our removal to prevent future competition." Jack's hands tightened on the railing. "You mean the exile was based on a lie?" "Not just a lie," Sophia replied. "A deliberate plan to eliminate a species they saw as a threat, not because of aggression, but because of our capacity for rapid advancement. They knew about the Phoenix system and its resources before they exiled us. They expected the journey to kill most of us. The journey back to Phoenix Prime was faster than their careful approach." Emperor Foster received their report in the war room deep beneath the Imperial Palace. Though nearly 70, his mind remained sharp, and his legendary composure cracked only slightly as he viewed images of the transformed Earth. "Distribute this information to all Imperial worlds and our allies," he ordered. "The people deserve to know the truth." As the evidence spread throughout human space, public outrage grew. Military enlistment doubled overnight. Production of warships increased. The memory of exile, dulled by decades of prosperity, burned fresh again in the collective consciousness of humanity. Then came more disturbing news. Imperial intelligence confirmed that several Council races, led by the Centauri, were secretly building a massive fleet. Intercepted communications suggested they planned a preemptive strike against human territories. "They fear what we've become," Emperor Foster told his advisors, "and perhaps they should. The question now is what we do with this knowledge." He stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, where the Phoenix Empire glowed blue against the red of Council space. The exiles who had once followed in terror now possessed the power to challenge their persecutors, justice or revenge. The choice would shape the galaxy for centuries to come. 100 years after humanity's exile from Earth, the final confrontation arrived. The combined Council fleet, led by Centauri and Valdurian dreadnoughts, crossed the border into Phoenix Empire space. Over 300 warships moved toward the human colony of New Horizon, their intent clear: to end the growing human threat once and for all. Emperor William Foster II, now in his 90s but still sharp of mind, watched from the Imperial Command Center as the tactical display showed the enemy advance. Beside him stood Admiral Jack Bennett, his face grim but determined. "They expect us to be unprepared," Jack said. "Intelligence reports indicate they believe their buildup went undetected." William nodded slowly. "Then let us show them how wrong they are." Throughout the preceding months, the Phoenix Empire had prepared. Planetary shield systems had been strengthened. The quantum communication network had been hardened against attack. Most importantly, the revolutionary technology developed by generations of human scientists since the exile had been incorporated into the Imperial fleet. As the Council forces approached New Horizon, they encountered no resistance. Their confidence grew as they neared the seemingly defenseless colony world. Then, as they entered the system's outer reaches, hundreds of spatial distortions appeared around them. "Gravity web activated," announced General Heather Collins from her command ship. The technology developed by Marcus Holden created a network of localized gravity fields that slowed the Council ships to a crawl. Before the enemy could react, the Imperial fleet emerged from hiding behind New Horizon's moons. Admiral Bennett's forces had been waiting in precisely calculated positions. The Council fleet found itself surrounded, its ships struggling against the artificial gravity fields. "Open a channel to the Council flagship," Jack ordered. The face of Oryx, Supreme Commander of the Centauri forces, appeared on the main screen. His blue skin had paled with shock at the trap his fleet had entered. "This is Admiral Jack Bennett of the Phoenix Empire. Your fleet is surrounded and immobilized. Surrender now." Oryx's eyes narrowed. "Humans, always so primitive. You think this changes anything? The Council will send more ships. We will never allow your kind to threaten galactic order." The battle that followed was decisive, but not the massacre it could have been. The Imperial ships used their advanced weapons to disable rather than destroy when possible. When the fighting ended, over 2/3 of the Council fleet had surrendered. The rest had been destroyed or fled. 2 days later, Emperor Foster arrived aboard the Imperial flagship Ascendancy for a historic meeting. Representatives from 12 Council races, including the defeated Centauri and Valdurians, gathered in the ship's grand conference room. 100 years ago, your predecessors exiled my people from our home based on lies," William said, his voice strong despite his age. "You feared what we might become, so you tried to destroy us. Today, you face what we have become." With a gesture, he activated a holographic display showing evidence recovered from Earth: the falsified reports, the secret meetings, the plan to claim Earth for the Centauri. "We could demand revenge," William continued. "We could exile you from your worlds as you did to us. Instead, we offer a choice." The terms were simple but revolutionary. The old Council would be dissolved. A new galactic alliance would be formed where all species, including humanity, would have equal representation. No race would have the power to exile another. Technology would be shared rather than restricted. "Those who join us will find humans to be powerful allies," William said. "Those who oppose us will find we are no longer the helpless refugees you once knew." One by one, most of the Council races agreed to the new terms. Only the Centauri and Valdurians refused, retreating to their core worlds in isolation. In the years that followed, human ships returned to the Sol system, not as exiles, but as liberators. Teams of scientists began the long process of restoring Earth to its original state. It would take generations, but eventually, humans would walk again on the shores of their ancestral home. The Phoenix Empire had come full circle. Cast out as refugees, they had returned as architects of a new galactic order. The species that had been judged too dangerous to join the galactic community had, in the end, transformed it into something better. A civilization where no species would ever again face exile for the crime of potential. As the restoration of Earth began, Admiral Bennett stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the blue planet spin below. A junior officer approached him. "Sir, was it worth it? All those years of exile?" Jack thought for a moment before answering. "Our ancestors didn't have a choice, but what they built from